guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled, Mom Takes Down the HOA from the Inside. My neighborhood does not have a homeowners association. At least, not anymore. When my parents first moved in, my older sibling maybe 2 years old and with me as a little glowworm, there was an HOA. They took money from the neighborhood in exchange for their services. At first, and for quite a while, my parents just kind of shrugged it off. The HOA shoveled the snow off the streets in winter and dealt with trash collection, so they were doing something worthwhile, right? Ha, no. The city controlled the snowplows and garbage trucks, not the HOA. But still, there was the illusion of effort. And besides, one summer they decided to contact a company to plant new trees all over the neighborhood. The fact that the company was owned by the son of the head of the HOA was totally coincidental. The trees were the beginning of the end for the HOA. Why? Well, my grandma on my dad's side was visiting when they came around to plant the trees. My grandma, who is a certified master gardener. And so, she stared through the windows of our house as the guys planting the trees just dropped the saplings on the grass. Still with their roots inside the bag they came in. No holes dug, no holes cut, just a bagged sapling lying on the grass like a pathetic and sad stick. The saplings laid there all night. No one came back to actually do their job and plant them. My master gardener grandma mentioned offhand that those saplings were going to die unless they got in the soil. And something clicked in my mom's head. She was paying the HOA money, actual money, every month, while both she and my dad worked, taking care of 2 very little kids, sending us to daycare and preschool and arranging babysitters and feeding us, and the homeowners association was just going to pull this half-assed bullshit instead of doing what she's paying them for. No. No fucking way. So, she showed up to the head of the HOA's house and basically demanded that the trees get planted properly like she's apparently paying for them to. The head of the HOA, so excited for someone actually caring about the neighborhood, made their second mistake. They asked if Mom wanted to join the HOA. She agreed. The trees were planted, but most didn't make it. My grandma was right. First things first, my mom showed up to the next HOA meeting. There were like 5 people there. No wonder they asked Mom to join, they desperately needed the people. So Mom looked at this collection of white people, herself included, who weren't even paying money to the HOA like the rest of the neighborhood. All the contractors the HOA called in were close relatives of other HOA members and weren't paid by the HOA. After all, they're family. So, my mom started digging. She spent pretty much a full summer taking down the HOA before she had to go back to teaching in the fall. With me carted along after her and my sibling old enough to be in school or daycare, she dug through the years of paperwork detailing the HOA's financial situation. And she found something extremely enlightening. The HOA didn't actually do anything. Well, they didn't do anything to benefit the community. Everything they claimed to do was either covered by the individual homeowner or by the city itself. So, they were collecting money from all the neighborhood residents under false pretenses, and actually they weren't even supposed to be in our neighborhood. Their association's zone was a whole different neighborhood. So, what is a working mother of 2 small children to do while her husband is off at work and she's off for the summer? She goes door to door with pamphlets. Me and my sibling in a stroller as she weaves her way through the neighborhood blocks, pamphlets explaining the situation and how to stop paying for services you'll never get. Pamphlets that are, of course, written in both English and Spanish to account for the high amount of Latino and Hispanic people in our neighborhood. And naturally, she got a lawyer. And an accountant. It put a major dent in her pocket, but if it meant the entire neighborhood wasn't exploited for money each month, it was worth every penny. Another HOA member helped her sift through the documents and data and pass out pamphlets and encourage people to show up to the meetings but had to back out because of work-related reasons. My mom rolled up to the courthouse flanked by the lawyer and accountant, her kids safe at home with her husband, and had more than enough evidence to get the homeowners association the fuck out of her neighborhood, expose the fraudsters for the frauds they were, and make sure that no HOA would ever push their luck in our neighborhood. It's been almost 19 years, and no one's even tried making another homeowners association in our neighborhood. The next story is titled, Neighbor Complains About Maintaining a Hedge Wall and Then Has to Construct a Wooden Fence. This story happened about a decade ago when I was still a teenager and used to live in my parents' house. We are migrants and are on good terms with all the neighbors since the 90s, but we do have a reputation in the neighborhood of frequently undertaking ambitious DIY home improvements and in an atypical manner to what locals expect. Our house is separated from the neighbors with a living hedge wall of cypress trees that grow on our property. At the time of this story, we already lived in the house for the better part of the decade with the same neighbors and the same cypress trees. One day out of the blue, one of the neighbors sees my mom working in the garden and starts complaining about the state of the living hedge on her side of the property. We usually trim the hedge only from our side and most of the top that we can reach. The neighbor complains and demands us to trim the hedge from their side as well. In her eyes, as the hedge wall is planted on our property, it's 100% our responsibility and they are tired of maintaining it from their side. The altercation is very brief as my mother surprisingly quickly replies, "Okay," and walks off grinning. Unbeknown to the neighbor, we already were planning to cut down the hedges to the stump so that they could regrow anew, as the existing hedge was very old and was not particularly sightly. Previously we postponed these works as we did not want to upset the neighbors, but this demand provided the perfect excuse. So, the next day while the neighbors are at work, we cut down all the hedges surrounding our property to barely above ground. As we are finishing clearing up the trimmings, the neighbors come back home from work shocked to discover the hedge practically gone. They look around and realize that with the hedge wall gone, their whole backyard, kitchen, living room and bedroom are on full display through the windows. The neighbor questions what we have done and why, as they would no longer have any privacy in their own home. My mom, without missing a beat, replies, "We fixed the problem. The hedge will no longer need trimming from your side," and goes back to clearing up. Within a week the neighbors came back to us and asked for permission to construct a wooden fence on our property to protect their privacy. We happily agreed as long as they paid for it all, as we didn't mind waiting a couple of years for the hedge to regrow. Our privacy was much less impacted. They built the fence within the week, and it provided a good surface for some vine flowers to grow instead of the cypress trees that my mother had wanted to plant for a long time. Edit. People are concerned that the neighbors would be able to claim some of the land as theirs. This is not the case, as the property delineation markers are still there, and nobody would ever move, tamper with them. Even if they did, this is in an EU country and our land is marked based on specific coordinates and not some arbitrary line such as a fence, no matter the situation. When the fence was being constructed, we made sure that this was the case. I should have originally specified that they effectively paid and constructed a fence for us that we legally own. The next story is titled, I'm a Man of Action, Lady. This one was from about 6.5 years ago roughly. Our office manager at our surveying office would every so often purchase a piece of land and make a subdivision off of it to make extra money. There was one property he bought, and he had to hurriedly send us out to it to mark his property line since the next day a guy was coming to completely clear and to stump about the roughly 7 acres lot. While marking one line, this lady comes out and proceeds to curse us out and ask us what we were doing. My field crew chief at the time decided to take the "F you, mind your own business" route. I thought better of it and decided not to be so brash about things. Now I knew what was getting ready to happen on the property we were marking, but best business practices are to know as little as possible about what is happening. I told her that someone had just purchased the lot and wanted to see where his lines were. She had been mowing some over the property line, and she proceeded to tell me that she had broken 4 mowers trying to keep that lot cut back so she had more open space around the house, and she was sick and tired of no one maintaining the lot. Equipped with the knowledge of what was coming the next day, I told her, "Well ma'am, I'm a man of action, and I'm going to personally find the guy who has bought his property. I'm going to put my finger in his face, and tell him he had better mow his property as soon as possible or he's going to be dealing with me about it." Fast forward to the next morning. This huge, tank-like machine went out and by the end of the day, there wasn't so much as a stump or tall weed left. Clean as a pin down to the dirt. The next day we had to come out and do a topo on the land for the engineer. I couldn't resist going and knocking on that lady's door. She answered and I said, "Ma'am, I told you I would take care of it." "Anything else you need?" She said, "I just wanted them to mow." On the positive side, we were out there probably another 15 to 20 times doing the subdivision layout. She always threatened to shove a wooden stake up my crew chief's ass. but she told me she liked me, and I was welcome on her property anytime. The next story is titled, Guess We'll Have the Coffee. My sister just reminded me about this story. It takes place in 2017. She and I were out for brunch and had a lovely time at an upscale rooftop restaurant in the heart of our city. You know, the kind with a full setting, cloth napkins, and white tablecloth. The kind where a pancake entree has the word melange and mimosas are $16. We had a great time even though the service was a little rushed. We get it. Saturday brunch means a lot of tables with a speedy turnover. My sister had been a waitress all through college. We even joked about her applying for the weekend shift since she'd make great tips. When it came time to settle the check, we noticed we had been charged for 2 coffees, which we didn't order nor receive. While handing the bill back, I asked that they be taken off. Waiter. Well, you got coffee. Me. I'm sorry, we actually didn't. See? Shows him the pristine empty coffee cups. Waiter. No, there's 2 coffee cups on the table. Me. There are coffee cups on every table. At this point he kind of huffs and rolls his eyes and says he doesn't have the authority to remove anything from the bill. Before I can ask for someone who can, he smirks and says the manager on duty just went on break and we'd have to wait 30 minutes for her, but he'd be asking us to wait at the host stand since they need the table. My sister and I look at each other and we both get the same idea. Sister. Well, okay. Guess if we're being charged for coffee, I'd like a refill. Me. Oh, for me too. And can you bring cream and sugar? It was at this moment he knew he screwed up. We spent another 20 minutes sipping coffee and keeping him from turning the table. We asked for refills once, and I asked if they had any raw sugar packets. By the end of it he was pointedly ignoring us. We kinda giggled about it, and I made a very dramatic show of flourishing my card, putting it in the booklet, and setting it upright. My sister even tried to flag him down, but he refused to look in our direction. We finished and hung around until he came back with his manager. He was smirking again. Big lips, that guy. I have to say that facial expression stayed with me. Waiter, sickly sweet. Okay, you too. We have a seating time limit to allow our other guests the opportunity to eat with us. Will that be all today? Me. Well, we've been waiting for you to take our check. I was trying to get your attention earlier, but you must have been busy. I offer him my card and the booklet, and I've never seen a human turn red so quickly. He mutters that he'll be right back and marches off to run it. While we were waiting, the manager asked us about our experience. We said we both had a great time, and we'd be back, and relayed what happened. At least we ended up enjoying the coffee. We paid, left a decent tip, and skedaddled. But it felt good knowing he probably cost himself a ticket's worth of tips over $9 in coffee. The last story is titled, But There Is No Emergency. A smaller story from my time at the front desk. Me. Chronically depressed and generally average. Mr. Kevin. The male equivalent. So basically, it's common sense to most, not including the fact we tell people not to park there, that emergency parking is for emergency vehicles. Generally, people understand that if there is an emergency, first responders may need the best access and don't need to try to maneuver around your car or vehicle while working. Now since it is right in front of our lobby, we give some leeway to let people to get their stuff out and check in before they need to move their car. We don't mind if you take 15 minutes to take care of things regarding getting situated or the like. If you leave it there, we usually call the room and as I said, most people understand and move the car. No fuss, no muss. Simple concept. The story begins with my entering into my shift and seeing a white car parked in the emergency area. Nothing too out of the ordinary and I walk the front desk and as I take my place, the supervisor, who works the previous shift, informs me that the guest has parked his car there, checked in, and hasn't moved it in 3 hours. We have already told him twice to move the car and he has brushed off the requests. After that we will tell him one last time and give him 30 minutes before we call the city's towing service to come and pick up a car. I sigh and call the room. When he picks up, I inform that I need to see him at the front desk. Silence. Then a low mumble of him agreeing. I wait for 15 minutes handling a check-in or two before he shows up. Hello, are you from room XX, Mr. Kevin? I greet. Yeah, what's this about? He said, already irritated. Well sir, I am sure you've already been informed that your car is in our emergency parking area and need to be moved. I inform him, not taking offense as he had probably been lying down before he was disturbed. Why do I need to move my car? He demanded indignantly. It's out emergency parking area sir. Only emergency vehicles are allowed to park there, I replied, willing to explain what I thought was pretty standard for hotels. It's not like there is an emergency going out right now. He countered angrily. That doesn't really matter whether or not there is an emergency or not at the moment. I tell him, it isn't a parking that is predicated on time or whether or not there is an emergency. That area needs to stay clear in case an emergency happens. He sneered and crossed his arms. So what are you going to do about it if I don't move my car? Huh? I frowned, but he should know the consequence. I wait 30 minutes before I call the city to tow your car. You're not gonna tow my car. He laughed, already walking away. I level a flat look at him walking away. Alright. Bet. I do wait the customary 30 minutes that I told him I would wait to see if he would heed my advice, and he doesn't come back. A small call and interaction with the tow truck driver later, and our emergency parking area is clear once again. When he returns, 3 hours later, he looked around in the lot in confusion before realization dawns on his face, and he storms back in, scowling and ready to deck me. What did you do? I look him straight in the eye. I had your car towed. Why? Because you were parked in the emergency area. Thank you for listening.